Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. With me is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
I got no choice.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
I will beat your ass like a Cherokee drum.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast reviewcast for...
Whoa!
What?
You're going to give it Fate that much of a sick burn? You're going to deny it a quote?
This movie don't deserve a quote from me.
Oh!
That's my quote. Quote me on that shit.
Shut up, Taj.
Welcome to the It Modcast podcast reviewcast for Fate of the Furious.
Fate of the Furious.
The 8th installment in the Fast and the Furious franchise.
My second most anticipated movie of 2017.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was actually your most anticipated or your second most anticipated movie. I think it was your second most feared film. Because every time we talked about Fate of the Furious before the screening, you were saying how nervous you were.
Very
Coming
nervous.
off of Furious 7, you were not in the same line of thinking of where James Wan took those characters.
No, and I know we're going to get into the film, but I was not a fan of Furious 7. Now, I do understand the circumstances surrounding Furious 7. So there was a major juggling act with the death of Paul Walker, and it's an achievement that they were able to actually kind of come up with a cohesive film and a nice sending off for him as well. But the film overall just didn't, I don't know, it didn't have that heart. It didn't have what I wanted to see as a continuation coming out of the Justin Lin era of the franchise.
I went back and I listened to a little bit of our Fast Cast that we recorded a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's right. Not last year, but the year before. 2015 Fast Cast.
You did a deep dive.
We did do a deep dive, and we went and we watched like a whole bunch of the films over at Brian's place.
That's right, yeah.
And even then, going into Furious 7, you were nervous or unsure of the escalation that was occurring. And Darren definitely did not respond positively towards Fast and Furious 6 coming off of 5. You both were not... You felt like they were becoming something separate from what they started out as, because you both started out as fans of this film from the 2000 film, right?
Yeah, the 2001 film. Well, I kind of felt that way to a degree. Now, I was all on board with 7 because I was interested to see what James Wan was going to do with that film. But after watching that, my whole approach to the thing is because you hear the narrative going out there among the geek community. It's like, oh man, like they should go to space. Let's make it bigger and more ridiculous.
They should go to space, Brian.
I don't know. We can have that discussion later. But I don't know. Like for me, I like the fact that I would want to see them kind of scale back. I mean, I think you can really just do a more character-driven movie, regardless of what people may think about the characters. These are characters that I love, that I've kind of followed this whole saga, but I want them to scale back the action and not be so focused on set pieces, but let the action drive the drama.
I would argue that the Fate of the Furious does step back from the insanity of 6 and 7. Yes, there is this absurd submarine sequence at the climax.
And that ridiculous New York.
There's the zombie cars. There's the jetpacks, the G.I. Joe jetpacks that Jason Statham's flying around in. It is still not a reality that any of us can understand. It is a fast universe version of physics, but I do think that it is not as absurd as what you saw in 7 or 6.
These movies don't live in our reality. That's pretty evident, and that was evident from, you could say, not just Fast 5, but even with the 4th film. These movies just do not live in that type of reality.
I mean, from the first film.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, as far as the ridiculousness of just the how ridiculous the action has gotten, but what I want to say is the fact that these characters and there's moments in these films that you're able to ground a certain type of reality into. Even with all this crazy stuff in the 20-mile runway and the 6th movie, there are moments in these movies that as an audience member you're able to connect to these characters, and that's what I think is partly missing in the 8th movie.
And I mean, I certainly agree with that. I think.
Well, hold up. Well, first let's start talking about the movie, and then once we get to these certain reference points that you have issues with, Brian, or that you want to reinforce, Brad, we can stop off the here and there. But stopping off, I mean, picking up with what you just said, Brian. Like, let's just talk about like where this movie picks up.
In Cuba. So, we're in Cuba, and you gotta forgive me. I'm trying to remember this movie, but we start with Dom's cousin is getting his car towed, and the tow truck driver, or whoever the guy is, I don't even remember the guy's name, he starts kind of talking shit to his cousin and then says something to Letty, so Dom challenges him to a race. And so this opens up to, and we've seen a couple of clips of this, again, in every Fast and Furious movie, it's a staple where you have to have like the car culture in there and the drag racing, and this was that scene that they put it right at the beginning of the movie, where they pretty much race to get the guy's car.
So, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I knew we were in trouble 10 frames into this movie.
Yeah, the movie, we were talking a little bit about it.
Gary Gray and whoever his DP is, it looks like a television show. This opening scene where they go to Havana and they have this drag race, and I love Dom's character in this moment. You know, where this lion in charge of keeping his cubs in place, where he's going to protect his nephew by hitting the streets. He's going to take this really piece of junk car that he has been ordered to drive because his opponent said, like, you know, I have to pick the car because you says it doesn't matter what the car is. It's all about the driver. So he gets this hunk of junk, right? And Dom starts to pull the doors off and the hood off, and he strips this junk pile into an engine on wheels, and he
pretty much
jacks it up with Havana Nas, right? And I like all that. I really like his relationship with Letty in this scene. You know, they're together again. The romance, the chemistry between those two, I buy it. I like it.
Yeah. The first part in this scene, yes, I do.
In this scene. No, in this scene.
Yeah.
But that race looks like garbage.
It is. I mean, and I guess we can go to the first negative, which would be a few for me, is I think the CG in this movie throughout this film, and specifically you see it in this first opening scene, is pretty bad. I mean, it just looks, I don't even know how to describe it. It just doesn't look.
It doesn't look connected with the reality of the practical.
No, it doesn't feel like they're on the streets of Havana. It doesn't. It feels like they're on a set.
I mean, there have been Fast movies that have also looked like garbage.
Yeah, the fourth one.
Well, fourth one looks bad.
Yeah.
Go back and check out Too Fast, Too Furious. Go back and check out the first Fast and Furious. Cinematically, they have not aged well. If you want to talk bad CG, oh my God, Too Fast, Too Furious is ridiculous in its CG blue screen work. The problem with the Fate of the Furious is how it's mapped out, how the race is mapped out, how it's shot, the angles that are chosen, the shot selection in this movie is awful.
It doesn't make the race feel exhilarating. I mean, there's too many, and F. Gary Gray does this a lot, even in the New York sequence where you have a lot of these God's eye view shots, overhead shots, and you don't feel the intensity and the speed of the race. Like me and Darren, we were having a conversation before the movie started about Michael Bay, and just talking about like Bad Boys 2, and you see a lot of the way Michael Bay shoots and how you look. And I mean, it's easy from a technical standpoint when you're directing a film that when you're shooting action, if you wanna show speed, you shoot low to the ground. And there's no type of dynamic shots in this movie where the camera is low to the ground where you feel the speed. Even in Rob Cohen's movie, in the first movie, even in John Singleton's movie, you can feel the speed in those races.
Here's the thing. The movie is shot by Stephen Windon. Stephen Windon shot Star Trek Beyond. He shot Furious 7. He shot Fast and Furious 6. He shot Fast 5. He shot Tokyo Drift. All right, he is shot amazing, I'm serious. Those movies are amazing looking at stylistic achievements.
Yeah.
The difference is F. Gary Gray is directing this film from a playbook that he has used before. That is
the Italian Job playbook.
Yeah, it's the Italian Job playbook. It's the generic action director's playbook.
It's funny because I was thinking the same thing watching this movie. Like, we have these big, crazy, ridiculous set pieces, but when you're watching the movie, there's no visual panache to these scenes. Like, they feel very, like you said, boring. There's nothing like the way he moves the camera, like you say, the shot selection. Like, yeah, we got car zombies, we got all these crazy set pieces, but there's nothing like it doesn't look.
It's super dull visually.
Yeah, it is.
And F. Gary Gray is a dude who just made a movie that I really, really loved.
Absolutely.
Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
And I think he had a lot of heart and passion for that project.
And I wanted him to bring that to this. That's what got me excited about his hiring as a director.
But that's the thing. I just don't think he had a Fast and Furious movie in him.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's directed by committee. It really because you don't see any, and I'm not saying that F. Gary Gray is an auteur or a stylistic signature director where you can just point out his style, but you look at his filmography, especially coming out of Straight Outta Compton, I just thought we would have got something different than kind of like a generic looking film that we got, and it just feels like it was just made by committee.
Okay, so going back to the story, of course, Dom wins the race. That Havana Nas works for him. I think narratively, I liked it. I love the idea of this car on fire, launching into the ocean. That felt in play with the universe.
Yeah. I thought it was a funny moment with the guy when he offers him the car. His car.
And he says no. And that's a Dom moment. So from a character standpoint, I think the first 15 minutes works. It looks like junk, but it works. Now you have this scene, and is the second scene the introduction of The Rock or the reintroduction of The Rock?
The Rock at the soccer game.
All right.
Yeah.
Now suddenly we are shooting ladybugs. Okay. Yeah. And I appreciate how The Rock brought in his Maui warrior.
That was cool,
right?
I thought that was kind of fun.
I think it's fun.
Yeah,
it's in keeping with the character that we saw in Fast and Furious 6, the overachiever, military macho dad. Mm-hmm. But that soccer scene looks like a television episode.
Yeah, it looks bad. It looks really, really, really bad. And again, the visual effects, like, it just looks like he's on a green screen. And it's shot so flat. It's shot like a comedy.
It's really, really off-putting.
Yeah.
So I am immediately concerned, and we're not even 30 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
Now you have this character, this military guy who shows up for this one scene and never appears again.
Yeah.
Who gives The Rock his marching orders. Hey, you got to get to Berlin because there's an EMP, and we know that this organization is going to steal it, so you need to get your team together. And then smash cut to car bursting through a wall.
No. We skip some.
We get introduced to Charlize Theron's character back in Cuba because
right. And even the moment between Dom and Letty in
the bed, because that's a little foreshadowing because they're talking about he had a dream about kids or having kids.
Right. I forgot about that.
But then we have the introduction of
Cypher, Charlize Theron.
Yeah. So
which I actually liked her little introduction. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool, like playing like, oh, my car is broken.
Well, all right, so now I want Darren to chime in because he's got this mischievous grin. He's the hater of this franchise already. Yeah. We're not going to let him talk too much because he is such a negative force when Fast and Furious is in conversation.
But I think we're all on the same page.
But at the same time, Charlize Theron's his lady, Furiosa. Yeah. That's got to be exciting. Were you at all excited about her being introduced into this series?
Yeah, I actually was. Because it's Charlize Theron. It's Furiosa. And I'm going to say this. She plays a mean, and in mean I mean like the good way, like complimentary, like, man, that car is mean. She plays a mean bitch, and I mean when I say bitch, I mean like a witch, like she's basically the Snow White and the Huntsman's wicked witch lady, whatever, in dreads or whatever.
There's nothing redeeming. There's nothing redeeming about her.
Here's the thing, like I enjoy watching her in that performance
and chew that scenery,
chew the scenery. Now, as far as the character as a whole, and at the end of the day, when you examine the villainy and what was her motivation? Why is she even doing this shit?
Let's not jump ahead.
No, I'm not. I'm saying, but when you take a step back and look at the character as a whole, that's when I'm just like, okay, it's not that great. But I enjoy watching her, like you said, chew the scenery. I mean, she like that moment. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but that moment, it's in the trailer when she kisses Dom in front of Letty and she walks off and says, let's go. Outside of just what that is in the context of that story and the relationship between Dom and Letty, if you know that, if you're familiar with that. But me watching Charlize Theron, the thespian, the actor, perform that, looking at her eyes and her body language, that was some of the coldest shit ever, man. That was to do that in front of her, Letty, like, was so cold. But just to watch her do that, like, she was so good at being bad, and I that was probably one of the main things I enjoyed about the film. But anyway, they introduce her character. She basically says, "All right, Dom, I've been following you, been scoping you out. I know what you've been doing for the past however many years or whatever. I've been tracking you." And here's the deal: you're gonna work for me. You're gonna betray your family. You're gonna, betray your friends, and you're gonna work for me. And Dom obviously says, "I'm not gonna work for you." And she says, "Oh, but I think you are." And she pulls out her phone and she shows him something on the phone that the audience doesn't see, and she leaves.
So, what did you think it was? What did you think he saw on the tape originally?
So, at first, because Brian was saying, and I'm talking about Brian Young, I'm talking about Turtle Door, and Brian was saying like a while ago that he thought that the story was going to be, as far as like implementing Paul Walker into it without having him be there, he felt like she was going to have leverage over Dom and the group by having them kidnapped or something like that. So, and because at this point in the franchise, after 6 and 7, like I'm not that invested in it. I just took that like, oh, okay, well, because Brian's into it, so I figured maybe he read something or he had so I thought like that. All right, that's what they're going with. Yeah, so that's what I assumed.
Brian, did you think that at this moment?
It's interesting because I'm gonna jump ahead slightly, but I'll wait till we get to that point. But when we find out when he's on her airplane and we see the reveal of what it is, then it makes me think like, okay, she couldn't have shown him that on the phone,
right?
Because he like he didn't know when he saw the reveal on the plane.
So I mean, the audience, the people listening to this podcast, they know that it's not Brian kidnapped. It's not Brian's kid kidnapped. It's not Jordana Brewster.
Yeah.
No, it's
Elsa Pataki, who plays Lena.
Right. Alina and her child. So
yes.
I guess at that moment he sees her and this baby, and he goes, "Oh well, I guess I gotta turn against my team for this person that I used to have a fling with." All right, and actually in Fast 5, well, in Furious 6, you really get an impression that something was seriously there, like a relationship had developed.
No, they had a relationship because at the beginning of 6, they were like
they're together in bed, right?
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing about 6 is by the end of that, she's just like, you know what, Letty's your true love. I know we've been sleeping together for like the last few months, but I'm gonna back out.
And that's the thing, like, even if that's the case, even if that's what the movie is saying, and I'm all right, I'll go with if that's what you're telling me. Okay, that happened. But even if he saw that, I just don't feel like, especially without him knowing that that's his kid, right. I just don't feel like
that would make him turn against
everything
his team.
that you've gone through, and after everything that, not everything that you've gone through, Dom, but after everything Chris Morgan that you wrote in all the films leading up to this, that you've shown me as an audience to say that this is why every time they mention family, why you're supposed to believe them because they did this, they've gone through that, this has happened, they've been through this together, she saved him, he saved her, blah, 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 blah. You're going to show me all that and then tell me this person that he had a fling with for a few months is going to make him turn his back on them in that way?
That's why I don't think that's what she showed him on the phone. I think it was a picture of his sister and O'Connor.
No, the movie never says that, though. The movie...
But why would it make sense? Because
but that's the thing about this movie. It doesn't make sense.
Even if that's what she showed him, he never addressed it. It's never addressed.
So based on how this film develops that storyline where he then gets on the plane with Cypher and learns that baby is his child out of wedlock.
Yeah.
That the way he behaved in that scene in Havana with the iPhone, there had to be a sign held up that said, "That's also your baby you're looking at," because that's the only way it makes sense for him to turn on his team. I think they shot that scene and they were going to do a Paul Walker kidnapped sequence, and then they changed their minds during the filming of it, and they created this other scenario. Yeah, and they just said, like, audiences won't care about how he responds to that silent image on Cypher's phone.
Yeah, because when he sees her on the plane, he's shocked like he's seeing her for the first time.
Honestly, how much better would this movie have been? And it wouldn't be a great film. It would still be problematic because there's a lot frustratingly wrong about Fate of the Furious.
Yeah.
But the film would have just simply been better from a motivation standpoint if it was Paul Walker and Jordana Brewster. And as an audience member, it would have been more satisfying.
Yeah, because because we're already connected with that character, and it gives you reason for why he would probably turn on his family because of his blood sister Mia and the relationship that he has with Brian. That would be the only thing that would turn him against his.
I want to argue that though. I would say that if they kept it, that it would, like how it is in the film, that it's Elena and his kid, but just didn't have that scene in Havana where he let it be. Well, not have the scene in the airplane where he's shocked, but like whenever you reveal it, like take one of those out.
Yeah.
So if they kept it as that, for me, what I found interesting was when he goes on the plane, and we're jumping ahead, this conundrum of, oh shit, I had a kid with you. I'm just got to talking about having a conversation of having a baby with Letty. For me, I found that interesting as far as where that puts Dom, as far as giving him that character something to fight against instead of something in a car or another bad guy.
That could have been interesting, but then they put a bullet in her head.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
And they take a shortcut out is lazy writing. As soon as that lady said, you just when he first sees the baby and she said, you just got to promise me you're going to protect this baby, I knew she was going to die because they're going to because Vin Diesel is going to have to keep Dom a redeemable character. He's going to give him an easy out and not have to deal with telling Letty, look, I did this, like not having to choose, which I thought was a fucking cop out.
It was as soon as she died, it was an eye rolling moment because you could feel in the script like, okay, this is just an out for him, and we don't want to have to deal with this plot line, this subplot line.
Elena.
Elena.
Elena is actually a really interesting character in 5 and 6. And in particular 6, it's a really awkward and strange relationship. And so when they brought her back, I thought, ooh, to continue this is really, really odd and kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But every time the Fate of the Furious starts to get kind of interesting, it makes a dumb decision.
Yeah.
So,
and they do a disservice to the characters that they've built, because, like I said, with Elena, they give her a really interesting backstory when she's introduced in 5. The whole thing with her husband, in Rio and everything, and now they just.
And honestly, in 4, 5, 6, and 7, in all the previous Fast films, they do a wonderful way of making an Avengers moment, right? By reaching back into their mythology and pulling out a character that we had played with or forgotten about and reintroducing him.
Yeah.
They do that again in 8. But every time they reintroduce a character, and we'll talk about each and every one of those, it is mishandled and stupid.
Yeah,
and it flies in the face of everything they've established.
Yeah,
before.
and it doesn't feel connected. It feels forced.
So
way forced.
So Charlize Theron, Cypher's introduced. We then get the scene with The Rock at the soccer game. The dude gives The Rock the mission to go to Berlin to steal this EMP device because someone else is trying to get it. Smash cut, like you said, Brad, to the team. This is our first introduction to the team.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
They smash cut. And it's the scene that opens the trailer when they bust through the wall and they're making the escape, and then the giant metal wrecking ball comes down. That scene right there, like, for them to cut to that at that moment felt so off to me.
Yeah, it was very off. It was very off-putting.
Like, why would you introduce the rest of the quote unquote family in such a matter-of-fact way?
Because you've never done that in any of the previous films. Every time they've gone off on their own, each character gets there, whether it's that great scene with Roman in his plane, and he has to turn the plane around. Everybody gets their moment to reconnect with everybody. But here... To assemble, exactly. But here, you're already right with the team, and it just doesn't feel...
And it's in this moment where I feel that committee. I feel like there is footage that is missing, and this film has been cut and reassembled in a variety of ways throughout its production.
Because wasn't it rumored or said earlier on before the film's released that it was like 2 hours or 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes, something like that?
I don't know if I heard that.
I'm
not sure.
Because when they get to the final, the third act, the scene in Siberia at the end, I was like, damn, it's the end of the movie already? Anyway, that scene with the wrecking ball is what you see in the trailer, is where Dom sideswipes The Rock, flips his car over, and betrays the group, the family, and goes rogue. He steals the EMP device for Charlize Theron's character. So that's when... So after that is when that's when we have the scene where they show Dom meet his baby for the first time.
I think so.
Because that's when he gets back on the plane. That's when he gets on the plane. Because he pulls his car up in the plane.
Yeah.
And so that's where he sees her for the first time.
Yeah, we have that whole scene.
But like, again, that action sequence, which is such a silly and on paper a Fast and the Furious insane set piece, on paper you're like, wow, that's going to look so amazing, right? This wrecking ball going down the street. First off, where's this being swung? I don't know. And smashing all the cars, and then it comes back and it's going to smash the cars in reverse. And then a plane's going to get almost down to landing, and Dom's going to drive onto a plane, and the plane's going to take off.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's ugly. You can't see what's happening. It's cutting so rapidly that your mind does not settle on the actual physical action of the sequence.
Yeah. And then I guess next we go to is The Rock being transported to prison, and that's our reintroduction into Kurt Russell as Mr. Nobody, and one Scott Eastwood, who is called on IMDb Little Nobody. Scott Eastwood.
Well,
okay.
I love Kurt Russell. We all love Kurt Russell. And when you hear Kurt Russell's going to be in the Furious movies, you get a little excited. You're like, oh, that makes sense. Now, Fury 7, he's okay.
I was about to say, are you going to say you love Kurt Russell in the Furious, Fate of the Furious, or you just love Kurt Russell?
No, I just love Kurt Russell.
Okay,
but when he shows up in
cool.
Furious 7, you're like, he doesn't really do anything. He's a mysterious CIA spook type.
Yeah.
Now, we have an opportunity to explore his agency in 8.
Yeah.
And instead, we get the Paul Walker replacement of Scott Eastwood.
Is that what that's supposed to be? Because Brian mentioned that, and I was like, I didn't get that because Scott Eastwood didn't even register to me.
Well, I think they were trying.
Character.
They were trying to build that.
Like, we got to bring a white boy back. We lost a white boy, and so now we're going to say "fuck you, Paul Walker," and we're going to bring in Scott Eastwood,
and he's no replacement for Paul Walker.
Well, it's such a weird character, little nobody. He's a green.
He's very green.
CIA agent who has no business being there.
Yeah.
And at the introduction of his character, he does all kinds of stupid, idiotic stuff.
Yeah, it's like the
that should have gotten him kicked out of the room.
It's the way the script treats him. I mean, they undercut him at every moment. It's like, why even bring him into this movie? I mean, it's.
So at that scene, where I thought, okay, well, they're just using a moment to show how awesome Kurt Russell is. So Kurt Russell actually knows how this game's played, and he's going to show this little scrub how it's done. Mm-hmm. But then Scott Eastwood sticks around.
Well, I knew that's where it was going because I kind of knew through interviews and following this movie that Scott Eastwood was going to be a new player in this franchise, and that ultimately the studio was going to try to push him as the replacement for Paul Walker.
That's so offensive.
It's very offensive. And you see, and watching the movie, I got that because when you see the rift between him and Roman Pierce going back and forth, like it feels forced. You know,
it's embarrassing.
It's very embarrassing.
It's unnecessary. You got that from Tej and Roman. They do that. They take that up.
It's really, really uncomfortable. Every time Eastwood spoke, I felt bad inside.
Yeah.
And also, you know, not to like dump on Scott Eastwood, but it's a really awful performance. He's terrible in the movie.
No, he is. He is. It's really
cringeworthy.
Yeah, it's really bad. Now, I will say this will be a highlight for me. The prison break. Now we get reintroduced to Jason Statham back in prison, and him and The Rock have some great banter back and forth since their cells are like right across from each other. And you know, The Rock is saying to Mr. Nobody, he's like, "I'll get out my own way." And I love the moment, like he's taking like a cinder block bench and doing arm curls with it. I mean, it's just
The Rock is really good.
The Rock is great. The Rock is great. But that prison break scene, I thought was absolutely fantastic. I love that's my favorite part of the movie.
I agree.
That's my favorite part of the movie.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the back and forth between The Rock and Statham.
Yes.
But I also thought that action scene, though, suffered all the problems that I was talking about with the car chases. Mm-hmm. It's not edited well together.
No.
And it's not shot particularly well.
No.
There are some really cool stunt pieces that are ruined by camera work.
Yeah, and they try to do a lot of slow motion to try to recover from it.
It's
try to
weird
hide
slow motion.
It's very weird. It's very weird. But I just like again, I just have fun with that scene, seeing The Rock get hit by rubber bullets.
So like those are the moments. Like that's like The Rock's Hobbs character. It's as if he's already playing Black Adam. He is an insane superhero. He is throwing cops across the yard.
And I know you love first I know you love The Rock, Brad. And I know you love him for what he's done for this franchise, starting with Fast 5. And I know you love his character in that film 6, 7, and even this one. But yeah. In any other film, maybe it's cool to see Rock shrugging off rubber. I guess in any context, it's cool to see Rock shrugging off rubber bullets. That probably is the only human being that ain't a CGI character, that ain't the Hulk, that you could do that to, and you can kind of go, that shit probably was real. But that just doesn't feel. It just doesn't. It didn't for me. It just doesn't feel right in the Fast franchise. But but at the same time, with how they've been escalating the ridiculousness, it does feel like
it does.
It belongs.
It feels right in this movie.
Yeah.
So I think you've opened up a tangent I want to take right now with Darren.
All right, go ahead.
And the Fast films.
All right. The floor is yours.
Well, I know that the escalation thing in particular, the cartoonish escalation of the franchise, is where you checked out.
Right.
All right. It's from you like 5, right?
Yeah. That's when he was first introduced.
You like 5, but 6 you weren't crazy about, and I know you don't like 7, but in general, it's that cartoonish side where it's just so super heroic. You know, it goes into a level of unreality that bothers you.
If they didn't do it in a way that feels like we're just trying to top the last film, then if the escalation felt organic to me and not, now this to me is what I feel is by committee. Like, all right, let's do bigger than the last time. Last time we did this, so let's jump let's jump a lichen from one tower to the next tower. Like, in this one we got to drop the cars out of the back of a plane and parachute down.
But even in Fast 5, when The Rock is interrogating that guy and he lifts that dude up and he throws him into the ceiling, I remember you not liking that sequence. I remember you not liking The Rock's superhuman ability.
Yeah. Because again, and that's coming off of Fast and Furious. Like, there was nothing leading up to that. There was nothing.
I mean, I think you need to go back and watch Fast and Furious again. Also, you need to go and watch Too Fast, Too Furious.
Well,
Too Fast, Too Furious is when things become super heroic.
See, I remember that movie.
Yeah, I know. I'm watching The Big Boss this morning, the Bruce Lee film. Yeah. And this is a subtle way of us advertising our ItMod Spotlight. Darren and I are having one-on-one conversations about the Bruce Lee films. And I'm watching The Big Boss. And at the end of The Big Boss, there is a fight sequence in which Bruce Lee kicks a dude through a wall. And he has a man-shaped hole
cut out, yeah.
Right? And then later, in the final fight sequence, he has a flying kick duel with the Big Boss. And I'm reading about Bruce Lee's filming of this movie and the arguments he was having with the director about those particular moments, and how, Bruce Lee was all about bringing the reality of kung fu to the big screen, getting away from wushu and wire work, and showing what a real fight would be like. And when the director insisted on a Bugs Bunny-shaped hole through the wall, Bruce Lee was really incensed. He's like, that does not belong in this film. That's not what I'm trying to do in this movie. And I kind of got this thing. I wonder if that's like where Darren's sense of action comes from. Like, does it bother you when... it appears to me that it bothers you when things go into an unreality, a hyper reality.
No, because I have none of those.
No, I think I got you on the couch. I think I'm right.
I'm ready. Hey, look. I have none of those issues. You've never heard me say any type of complaint like that regarding a movie from the MCU or the DCU, or a movie that it's or from a franchise.
But the reality of those films,
it's always been that way. Mm-hmm. Fast franchise didn't give me that from the beginning, so to suddenly put that in there,
I argue that it did.
A superhuman, superhuman strength, like I said earlier in the beginning of this episode, the ridiculousness, the unbelievableness, of a group of street racers doing like hijackings in the desert. Like, that's stretching it, but people died. Like there was human consequences at the end. That
people die in 5 and 6 and 7.
Hold on, but the people in the family, when they're doing that heist at the end, and then somebody get their arm caught in one of the wires on the door. Vince. So there was human peril. There was a sense of realness. Like, this is what you're doing. You're not impervious to what you're doing. There's a sense of why you shouldn't be doing this. So that was inherent in that for me. When the kid with the
Giselle gets dumped out of a plane, she becomes road rash.
She's gonna be back. Somebody else got dumped out of a plane and came back. There's no stakes in it, and it wasn't like that before. So
it also wasn't entertaining. Fast and Furious is dull. It's a Point Break wannabe.
It is now. It may be now. But
it was then.
But for me, when it came out,
yeah.
I remember I almost did a donut in the parking lot on the way out of the theater. Brian was with me.
The red pickup truck.
I think
enjoyed it.
Ultimately, that's where the difference happens for the three of us. I think you guys really dug the first movie, and I thought it was super lame. And it was the introduction of the unreality that got me interested in this franchise. And so I've dug that from Fast 5 onward.
But see, here's the thing. I dug the first film. The second film, I told my story where I saw that and why that was special to me.
Yeah.
It's just okay as a film. The third film is where I checked out of the franchise because I was like, just like the introduction of The Rock and his superhuman power, now you give me you set up how important family is and Paul Walker's character, and I'm supposed to be with him and care about this guy. Now you're giving me somebody else in Bow Wow, and they're in Tokyo, all because you couldn't get Vin Diesel and Paul Walker back, so you're just cashing in.
Yeah.
So I checked out at Tokyo Drift. I didn't even watch Fast and Furious, the fourth film, during its initial run in the theaters or when it first came out on home video. It was a long time before I went back and watched Fast and Furious. I finally watched it and I was like, okay, all right, Paul Walker's back, but it's just an okay film. Then Fast 5 came out. The Rock's going to be in it. I was like, okay, The Rock could be a cool addition. Maybe they could add something to it. And then I hear all the the early buzz about it. And again, it was different. It was entertaining in a way that 4 wasn't, in a way that 3 isn't. And not saying that 3 isn't entertaining. I'm just saying Fast 5 is entertaining in a different way. Mm-hmm. So it was cool to see that. That scene about him bench pressing the guy into the ceiling, that I didn't like that. But Fast 5, all in all, is an entertaining film. So I just, like I said, if the escalation of those things were organic, first of all. Secondly, I could forgive The Rock shrugging off bullets. I could forgive everything, probably almost all the flaws in Fast 8, 7, and 6 if at the core of the film, the people who were doing this crazy stuff were the focus of the film. If the family, if the characters were given just as much spotlight as the stunts and the set pieces.
And that's where I agree with you 100% about the Fate and the Furious.
If they stop saying family and start showing me family, then I might have a different opinion about the franchise. They say family so much that it draws it puts a spotlight on the fact that they don't show them acting like a family. You don't see, I told Brian this, you don't see, when does Roman have a regular conversation or any dialogue with Letty in the film? Does he even look at her? Does she even acknowledge him? But that's your family.
Does Roman say anything outside of a quip?
To anybody.
To anybody.
Outside of Tej or the girl from Game of Thrones.
Even to those people.
So it doesn't feel like a family to me. And it doesn't feel, and that's because the characters don't feel like the focus to me anymore.
But see, and that's the thing, and that's why I was talking to Darren about this too. And I'll go on a little bit of a tangent. Is the whole Justin Lin thing? What Justin Lin was able to do from 3 to 6 has not been replicated since then. Because, like you say, we get this outlandish action, but it's all rooted in the characters. Like, we have those moments in Fast 5 when Paul Walker and Vin Diesel are sitting on the balcony talking about their fathers. We have the moments with Han and Giselle talking about leaving this life and going to Tokyo. Even in the second movie, when Roman is talking about, him going to juvie and, Walker and Paul Walker and their friendship. Like, we have those quiet moments with the characters, regardless of how we think about the movie overall. They establish the relationships between these people, where you just completely throw all that shit out the window in this movie, and it just becomes this generic, like, these two-dimensional characters.
And what's interesting is that 8 really makes you miss Brian, Han, Giselle. They had life to them, and their performers were given character scenes
exactly
to sell the family side of the story. so that when they were going from, dropping out of the sky to some road in Eastern Europe, it made you excited to see
these
characters work as a team because they worked so well as a family.
Yeah, and you felt that in the fifth movie. Like I said, I mean, and again, I go back. I know me and Darren talked about it too, as far as like the writing of it. But seeing that Chris Morgan wrote all these movies, to me, I just felt like Justin Lin was missed in these last two films. I mean, I just think that he had a vision from Tokyo Drift. He had a vision. It was like, we're going to bring Vin Diesel back. We're going to go back and we're going to establish these characters. And he even said that from the moment he made 3, he had a story arc that he had all the way up to 6 films. So he had a vision of building and creating this family. And going back now, in hindsight, looking at that, he was able to build something I felt was really special. And then now when he left and he hands the reins off to James Wan, I think James Wan and F. Gary Gray, for whatever reason, they just don't understand what Justin Lin built by reestablishing this franchise.
Because what's our favorite stuff about the Avengers? It's that scene at Stark Tower where they're trying to lift Mjolnir, right? That has nothing to do with the plot, except it's setting up a really great moment in the climax with Mjolnir.
Or in the first movie when they're arguing on the helicarrier.
Right. But it's not them talking about a mission.
Right.
Yeah. Work.
So those scenes existed in the Justin Lin movies.
Absolutely.
And they have those sequences also in 7. Because they have to,
and that's the thing. That's why I feel 7 is kind of
Paul Walker absence.
Yeah,
and I think for the most part, 7 handles that issue really, really well and leaves you feeling emotionally attached.
Absolutely, but this movie,
but 8 without those people, those deaths that have occurred over this series, and leaving us with the group that we have. Hobbs and Vin Diesel are not the family you want to be with.
Yeah. It's just a disconnect. It's a complete disconnect from everything that we've had in the last 7 films.
So Cypher has Diesel working for him. He steals the EMP device. He brings that back. She reveals that he has a child, and she's holding the child's mother and the child captive to force him to work for her. The next mission is New York. They got to go steal
the
briefcase.
nuclear football.
The nuclear football. This briefcase with the nuclear device in it from this diplomat who's in this convoy. That's where you have in the trailer the zombie cars, the herd of cars, World War Z style, driving around by themselves in New York.
Why don't they just take control of the Russian cars?
Look, don't get me started on the car thing, because being the tech head, the resident tech head, I don't want to talk about that right now. But what I'm gonna say is, before that happens, they have to prep for this mission, and when they're prepping this mission and doing recon, Dom makes a stop and he meets with Helen Mirren's character, who I totally forgot she was going to be in the movie. I remember. Long time ago, she got announced to have a role in it. So anyway, they have a meeting.
They have a cuppa.
They have a cup of tea, whatever, and then off Dom goes, and that's supposed to pay off later on. And it does in an infuriating way for me. And so the mission happens where Dom's they use the car stampede as a decoy and also a means to herd this limousine to this one location where Dom can steal this. So, do you have anything to say about this particular action sequence?
It's garbage.
I mean, outside of the car stampede, but also with
the Gatling gun truck,
with a team that comes and remember they try to harpoon him. And they have a moment where they face off and everything like that.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's all bad. It all looks terrible. And in the trailer, I was like, well, this is ridiculous, and this is the type of ridiculous that I want out of a Fast and Furious movie. Can't wait. Brian and Darren are a bunch of haters. And then I'm watching the sequence, and it's just so poorly put together.
Yeah.
So,
I just don't understand. And F. Gary Gray knows how to shoot action.
Does he?
Italian Job? I thought Italian Job was shot.
I think you got to go revisit the Italian Job.
That was 2003. Okay.
Dude, you're 14 years older now, B. You're a different person.
I know.
And, when Helen Mirren shows up, I'm like, yeah, that's great. Oh, cool, Mama Shaw. The three big bads of this, or, the big bad family that's going to take over in the next film. I felt like that was just set up for the sequel.
Yeah.
But no. We got to talk about the Shaw family here at this point.
Let's do it. Because this is my biggest issue with this movie and my final nail in the coffin for the franchise.
Okay. One of our favorite characters, if not our very favorite character of the entire series, is Han.
Yeah.
All right. And I would say Giselle. That relationship and how, Han is super cool in Tokyo Drift. I love Tokyo Drift. I didn't like it at the time because I was like, what are they doing? This is not what the series should be. This is so silly. Yeah. But looking back on Tokyo Drift is one of the best films in the series.
It's one of the better ones.
And Han is amazing in it. Sony Chiba, the Drift King, DK.
It's great.
It's great. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then you get a little Han in 4, and 5 you get a lot of Han, and that chemistry with him and Giselle, and then the romance and the tragedy of 6.
Yeah, the end of 6.
And then 6 ends with this amazing post-credit sequence of we're back at Tokyo Drift. This entire series has been a prequel to this moment of Tokyo Drift,
which is cool. And
Han is murdered in a car race, and the person who murdered him is Jason Statham.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's the main villain of Furious 7, kind of. And also, Furious 7 opens up with like one of the most superhuman acts of savagery. Jason Statham killing all of London. And he is going to take revenge on this team because they put his baby brother, what's his name? Luke Evans.
Owen Shaw.
No, but Luke, played by Luke Evans as Owen Shaw. They put him in the hospital. Well, now in 8, he's in prison for the acts that he did in 7, but at some point, his brother woke up from his coma and then got into some trouble, and then is in another prison, maybe?
Well, I guess he was...
Wait, so he didn't die? Owen didn't die?
Owen didn't die.
No, you're talking about at the beginning of 7. Remember?
In 7, he's in the hospital.
Dude, I don't
but at some point between the opening of 7 and Furious 8, he got out of jail, and there's a throwaway line, or he got out of a hospital, and there's a throwaway line of how he tried to partner up with Cypher, and Cypher got him in trouble, and he's in prison now. So Jason Statham is going to team up with Dom's crew because Cypher got his baby brother in prison. But then, also off-screen, somehow Dom has conversation with Mama Shaw, Helen Mirren. They get Luke Evans out of jail. And we know this because at the climax, Jason Statham's Shaw, Luke Evans is Shaw. They have these G.I. Joe jetpacks.
Those are real, by the way.
They fly. Yeah, they look awesome. I want to fly one and die. And then they fly into Cypher's plane, and there's an action sequence. And the moment when Luke Evans unmasks himself, and you're like, oh my God, it's the Shaw brothers. And then I thought, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
It doesn't.
But you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this action scene. But then Luke Evans disappears on that plane. And Jason Statham has this whole action sequence with his, not nuclear football, but his baby football.
No, you mean the movie cuts to the Mechanic 3, Resurrection.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And it's an awful action sequence.
Hold on. He was fucking them people up. I enjoyed that shit.
Yeah,
and I was conflicted because, and I want to talk about what you're talking about.
It is an ugly fight. It is brutal.
Well, it's brutal, but the movie. I want to go back to when it said. Kurt Russell says this is going to be your partner.
Right. Okay.
And they have scenes between Jason Statham and The Rock where they having their banter, and I'm going to beat you like a Cherokee drum, and I'm going to kick your ass, and blah 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 blah. And that goes back and forth. And then there's this moment that they have when they say in another life we probably could have been like cool or whatever. We probably could have did some real damage.
You murdered Han.
And then they share a joke, and they're friendly. Yeah. And you murdered Han, first of all. So why are you trying to get me?
And your brother killed Giselle.
Your brother killed Giselle, and then at the end of the film, you're giving this guy this badass action sequence, trying to make me like him more. And I'm only liking him because it's Jason Statham.
And you include the evil brother.
Yes. And
kind of.
So I'm like, you just spit in the face of Han, Giselle, all the characters who...
All of 5, 6, and 7.
Who fell for that dramatic turn of the franchise. For what?
I know. Absolutely, yeah.
Like, for what?
Yeah, it's like
because I know you're not going to tell me Jason Statham and Luke Evans are going to be in the next one on our team now.
By the end of this movie, they're all sharing a rooftop barbecue together,
and that by that point, I was like, you know what, I'm good because there's no focus. You spent 7 films establishing character, history, backstory, to giving us to the audience and expecting us to say, okay, this is what you say, this is what these characters are, this is what you wrote, Mr. Morgan. Okay, I'm gonna buy into it. I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna buy into the drama that you're selling. I'm gonna care about these characters, and then you're gonna give me this film
and you just
and
shit
go
on all of it.
All those tears that you shed for Han and Giselle, that drama that we built up. Yeah, don't worry about it. Instead, the guys that did that, they're kind of cool. You should like them anyway.
And we're giving them the climax of the movie.
Yeah.
I just don't get that. For you know what?
It's baffling.
They're putting the action set piece. They're putting that action set piece on that plane ahead of the characters in the franchise, and that's my issue with the Fast franchise.
Yeah,
it's the set pieces before the characters.
They put the actor before the characters.
Well,
that's really what's happening. There is like, we've got Jason Statham now. We can't just have him for one movie, just like we can't have Charlize Theron, because in Fast 9, Charlize Theron and the Shaw brothers are all going to be on the same team with them, and there'll be another new bad guy to kill, and I will not give a shit.
I know. At this point, I'm sad to say, I'm fucking checked out. I can't do it. If they're going to continue, especially if they say this is the beginning of a new trilogy, this is not a trilogy I want to see.
That Jason Statham walked on that roof barbecue at the end and handed Dom the baby and was able to leave without somebody pushing his ass off the roof for murdering Han.
Yeah, murdering Han
is beyond me.
Blowing up his house.
Yeah, your family. He killed someone from your family.
And he tried to kill you and your sister and your nephew.
So you just going to tap Corona bottles with the dude? Like, that's it? That's cool? Come on, man.
I don't know.
The Rock bench pressing a guy in the ceiling? All right. I'll give that unreality a pass.
See, I'm cool with that as long as you pay respect to the characters and the mythology and the story that you've created, and not just completely just forget about that. And that, again, I go back to the disconnect. Like, this movie just doesn't feel like it's a part. I mean, if you look at this as a standalone film, and we didn't have the other films, which couldn't happen, but okay, yeah, it's cool.
It did happen. It just happened.
Yeah, it did.
It just happened.
I mean, and I even said in a Facebook message, I want to see the Jason Statham Rock movie. Like, I would love to see a movie with them, but
not those characters.
Yeah, but the two of them together, like, this pretty much is what this movie was. It's like, okay, this is almost like a pilot for the Jason Statham Rock team up movie. And that's really all it is to me, because everything else just fucking fails. It absolutely just fails.
It's so frustrating. And ultimately, the biggest crime this film commits is it's boring. I mean, it's really boring. It is so dull. The Shaw thing is infuriating, I agree. But while the movie's going on, it is crawling at a snail's pace of unexcitement. It's crazy to me how snoozy this film is.
For me, I felt, again, like I said before, when they got to the scene in Siberia, I was like, damn, this is the last act of the movie already? I thought this was supposed to be a 2.5 hour. It didn't feel that long to me. It was going by for me. But maybe that's because I was just...
I think that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's slow. I'm saying it is boring and dull and uneventful and backwards and insulting to what has happened before, insulting to the fan base. So yeah, it's a tremendous misstep. It was crushingly disappointing.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I went in with a lot of trepidation.
Yeah,
because it didn't feel right to me.
This is a franchise that I fell in love with late in its series, and I really, really embraced its universe and its characters and its actors.
Yeah.
And this just flushes all of it.
Yeah.
But when Fast 9 comes out, I will be there.
I know. I'll be there too. Yeah. I mean, and they said they're going to 10. I hope they do stop at 10. And right now, I'm done with it.
You just said you're watching 9.
Well, yeah, I said I was done with Transformers, and I've decided I'm gonna see Transformers. I mean, I got.
We are dorks.
Yeah. So, I'm not.
What would it take for you to get excited about a sequel?
Honestly, man, I have no idea. I honestly don't think. I don't think they're really. You know what?
Bring Justin Lin back. You'd be excited.
Bring Justin Lin back, and I'll be excited. I honestly would, because I think he's the only person that understands this property.
Me, I say get another writer, because Chris Morgan has lost his focus.
That too. Yeah, I can see that.
So
yeah. Because it's just like with a director, when you're on a property for way too long, like sometimes you just need fresh eyes on something. And if he's written all the films since the third one, I mean that's 6 films he's written in this franchise. So I mean, granted he may know the characters, but right, his focus is off. And and you're bringing in these directors that really have no say. Great directors, but they have no say in the type of movie that they want to make.
Were you happy that Charlize Theron survived?
I really didn't care. By the end of this movie, I didn't really care. I didn't care about the Letty and Dom romance, and that frustrates me, because I've been with those two characters since the beginning. The first film, 2001, 16 years. And in that moment at the end, when he comes back with the family and they're on the ice and he's helping them out and they look at each other, I'm like, okay, that's cool.
You know what would get me excited? Since Charlize Theron is still alive and she's coming back,
I know.
Just say it for me.
Gal Gadot.
No,
yeah, what?
I'm talking about director.
Oh, you're saying George Miller?
George,
yeah.
He ain't directing.
George Miller's not. No.
You asked what would get me excited.
Yeah.
I know he's not directing. That's why I'm not going to see it.
I'd love Justin Lin to come back.
Yeah.
And I'd like Han and Giselle to come back in some fashion. But
at this point, though,
yes, I would. I would.
I mean, I would love to see them back too, but I just don't know how.
This is how you open 9. What was that horrible nightmare? I had this weird vision, Shaw, that we were friends. But now that I'm hanging you off of this building, I'm just going to drop your ass. And just drops Shaw to his death. Dom pisses on Shaw's corpse. And boom. And then Giselle's standing behind him, and Han's behind him, too.
Well, I would love to see that. But Giselle is Wonder Woman now. So... it might be
coming back.
It might be kind of hard for her to come back.
Give her all the money. Give her all the money.
Yeah. She ain't coming back.
Crossover.
They can't afford to get her back.
I don't know.
They can't afford good special effects. How you gonna afford?
Honestly, I will not be looking forward to 9 now, because this one was such a disappointment.
Yeah.
9 would have a lot to prove.
Yeah, this movie had a lot to prove for me. I don't know what happened. It used to be beautiful.
All right.
On that note.
Yeah. So hit us up on social media at ItModcast on Facebook and on Twitter. Share your thoughts about the film. Pretty sure everyone's going to go see it. Mm-hmm. And if you weren't planning on seeing it, I think you should. I mean, it's a film; it's worth seeing.
I mean, a lot of people will have fun with the movie, and I'm not here to steal anybody's joy. I'm not going to undercut the film and say, like, if you love it, that's great, because I love the franchise.
If they loved it, they sure as hell didn't listen to the end of this podcast.
No.
Like,
but I think a lot of people will have a lot of fun, especially if you came into this franchise late in the game and you like it for these reasons.
No, I'm that guy.
Oh yeah, you're one of those guys, but there's a lot of people.
Guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
No, this movie screws it.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying. But
if
I
you're
think
like
people
13 years old,
yeah,
you might like it.
Yeah,
you've only seen like a dozen movies in your life?
Hey, well, George Lucas just said that he made Star Wars for 12-year-old boys. And Michael Bay has always said that he makes movies for teenage boys. So if you're a teenage boy, you'll love Fast and Furious or Fate of the Furious.
Don't insult Michael Bay like that. Fast and Furious, that's how you get me excited for 9. Get Michael Bay to direct Fast and Furious.
That's actually a pretty good idea.
Dude, seriously.
I know.
Seriously.
I know.
See Bad Boys 2 highway chase sequence.
Yeah.
Mic drop, boom.
Or the Hobbs solo movie. I'm down for that.
Boom. See the Rock chase sequence with Hobbs in the Ferrari or the Hummer. Boom, mic drop.
It's Hobbs and Statham, directed by Michael Bay.
Nuts.
And Hobbs tears Statham in half 10 minutes into the movie. Literally just pulls him from...
You just wanted that character.
This is what I wanted to say. This is what I was thinking. You say that, Brad, but Jason Statham in real life could kill The Rock.
Uh-oh, here we go. Is this a new Versus episode?
Probably true.
Yes, it is. No, yes,
true.
it is.
It's true.
And we'll talk about this discussion after you finish watching Bruce Lee films and you get to know that man more. Size ain't got shit to do with anything.
I mean, Jason Lee is a professional ass kicker.
So is Jason Statham.
What did I say? I said Jason Lee. No, Jason Lee is a professional stink palmer. I meant Jason Statham is a professional ass kicker. So is The Rock. The Rock's a professional ass kicker.
Hey.
Okay.
I mean, I love them both.
Oh, I love them both too.
Yeah.
I love them both too. Like
Yeah,
I said, I want to see that movie.
Yeah.
I love them in the film.
But Shaw's got to die.
Kill Owen Shaw.
Yeah, okay. That was crazy disappointing. I mean,
Yeah.
because I love Luke Evans.
I know. He just coming off of Beauty and the Beast.
He's so good in that movie.
And
He's
then-
the best thing in that film.
And then
And then he shows up like Scarface in this film. You're like, yeah, he's going to have a badass brother-on-brother action scene.
Psych.
Nope. I'm going to go check out the pilots. What?
Oh, last thing too. I hate the way they try to connect everything to the other movie through characters. Like like I said, the Game of Thrones dude, Rhodes, when Letty sees him, like, oh, I know that guy. Like, when I was with Owen and his crew, and then you try to connect Jaimin Hansu's character. Like,
No, I like all that stuff.
yeah, but to me it shrinks the world. It's like, okay,
This
all
isn't
these people.
Star Wars, man.
Yeah, but the world is bigger than just. Come on, they're globetrotting over the world, but it's just these 5 criminals are all connected. Like,
Yes.
come on, man.
I like all that.
There was no reason. I mean, Jaimin Hansu's character, I guess.
I would have loved him come back, except they would have fucked it up like they did every other
Pretty
character
much,
that came back.
pretty much. But yeah, it was.
We got to stop this podcast.
Yeah,
'cause
we do.
The Fast 8 shitcast.
I know. My 2.5 stars going to go down to 1 if we keep talking.
I definitely have dropped it a half star. I gave it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd. It's a 2-star movie.
Yeah.
It's the worst Fast and the Furious movie. And I just watched Too Fast, Too Furious.
I know. I got to redo my Twitter. I put my rankings, and I put 8 then 2 as the worst. But I think I'm gonna flip flop 2 then 8.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
April 29th,
Well,
Alamo Winchester. Hold on.
Okay.
Alamo Winchester is showing the entire 8-run series of the Fast and the Furious movie, starting at 9 a.m. Saturday morning and going till 2 a.m. Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. I've got my tickets already.
I bought mine too. But here's the thing. I saw Fast 8, and I got to be at the Alamo this Tuesday. So what I'm going to do while I'm up there before I see 7 and interview Jill 6, shout out to Jill 6, I'm going to get my money back. Because I'm not sitting through 7 films just to watch Fast 8 again. Fuck that.
You could leave.
You could leave after 7.
leave
No.
after 7.
No.
You don't like
Just end
the
it on
marathon experience of
just-
seeing all 8?
Because me, if I go to a film marathon, I got to do the whole shit. Come on now. I've done Lost Weekend. I don't leave early from Lost Weekend, Brian.
Hey, look, I got shit to do.
I got shit to do too. Not
Hey.
watch Fast 8 again.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was really excited about doing it.
I could watch all those movies at home on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I just don't. I can't. I
think-
told Brian and I was like, I gotta tell Brad I'm not going.
I think I'm also not going to do
I'll
it.
get my money back.
I'm not going to do it.
It's not worth it.
It's not.
It's not worth it.
Not because here's the thing. I told Brian I was like, for me to watch all those movies in succession like that and then see Fast 8, it's just gonna make all the issues that I have with the discontinuity even more glaringly obvious, and it's gonna make me really not enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have that. I don't want to give myself that experience in the theater. I just can't. I can't do that. So
I really like the movies, and
I know.
I don't want to give my time to it now that 8's just so long. So such a disappointing film.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, tell the people where they can find you crying.
So you can find me and my disappointments on Facebook at Brian William Young, on Twitter at The Turtle Dork, on Instagram, The Turtle Dork 1, and check out my website, beyoungvideo.com.
Mouth Deezy.
You can find me on all social medias at MouthDork. And if you head on over to Film School Rejects this week, I just posted my celebration, the happy 15th birthday to a franchise that went to space and stuck the landing, Jason X. I wrote 1,200 words on that movie.
Yeah. Do that for Fast 8. I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. You can find me on all social medias at the Disco Dork. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoy the movie, actually. I'm not saying that to
really.
be patronizing, facetious, or whatever. Like, I genuinely hope someone enjoys that film, because the people behind it put a lot of hard work and effort into it, and so it needs to be rewarded. I don't feel bad because I paid my $20, so I gave back.
Yeah, you went Dolby Prime,
so I paid for my opinion, basically. I paid for. Brian, talk a little bit about that before we leave.
Okay, before we go, my first experience in Atmos Dolby Prime.
Brian is sterile now. He got the sperm shaking out of his nuts.
That shit was fucking awesome. Like, I was like, because I asked Darren, I was like, do the seats move? He's like, yeah, they will move. I was like, holy shit, yeah, that sound and picture is fucking amazing.
And even though it was so amazing, you still came away disappointed.
Yep. It shows you how bad that fucking movie is. But I will be back in that theater.
See, so Brian sees my preaching the gospel about the Dolby Prime. It's real.
Yeah.
It's real, folks.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Go out to the movies this weekend. Watch a movie. Watch Fast 8. Just do something in the theater. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. And until next time.